fucking cool.
Women are so fucking cool.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Women Are So Fucking Cool. I am Joanne, the hostess and the founder, and I only founded this society with the help of a few other fucking cool women in New York City in 2005. I call myself the founder because um, it's based on a film that I had, Women Are So Fucking Cool. However, you know, I'm a founder, but we're all part of the society. Uh, kind of babbling a little too much, but that's what I do sometimes. So, welcome to my world. And this podcast is definitely a work in progress. And I am learning along the way. It's going to be a documentary. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But um, today's episode, I'm talking to Twanna Hines. And this was actually the very first recording that I did. We recorded this episode in December 2024. The new administration hasn't taken effect yet, so various different, conversations. And I also was sort of not 100% sure how all the interviews were going to go. So I did an interview with Twanna Hines, who is a funky cool woman. She's also the funky brown chick. But I decided not to lead with this podcast, her episode, because as you'll see, as you keep listening, because you will, because all the women are so fucking cool. Um, I started creating more of a system and how they're all more succinct in my questions. And I'm actually getting better and not saying so much and oh and Toastmasters is great for that. My Toastmasters training is coming up. So long story short, this episode means a lot to me because I've known Twanna. She was the first woman I got to interview. I was nervous and we had to postpone a couple times because of our schedule, but we did it, which I thought was really, really grateful. And I'm really grateful she did that because anytime you start something, it's a little nerve-wracking, right? So we did it, and I hadn't talked to her in years. So we had a little catch up while I was recording, which isn't really what I want you all to listen to. So it was a kind of a funny edit, and I definitely would love to schedule another time to chat with her and have another conversation with her because now I have more things I want to talk to her about, especially about the work that she does, which is she works with health and justice for sexual reproductive health. I'm reading this all backwards because I'm reading it from the LinkedIn. She delivers sexual and reproductive health and justice for international digital and social impact. She is an advocate for healthy relationships and entrepreneurs. And I've known her since early, 2000s. And I've just been so inspired by her consistency with her messaging and being able to live her dream life and also be a feminist and a strong woman and a single woman. And as another single woman, I love relationships, but I love being single, and that's the great thing about fucking cool women. We're all different. We all have different choices, but hey, it's all about the choice, right? Right. So, so a little bit of rambling for this intro, but I wanted to just share some insight, the process of what's happening as I make this podcast, because I'm doing this for a personal journey for myself. And I hope for all the women and people who listen to it, it also gives them some insight on how to just keep navigating this crazy world that we're living in and that we have the ability to really shift and change it as especially if you respect and encourage and celebrate all people, right? So here's Twanna, and until next time, peace. Hi, everybody. I am here with a fucking cool woman, and it's very, very, very exciting. I'd like to introduce our special guest today, Twanna Hines, the funky brown chick. Hey, Twanna.
Hey, how are you?
I am so good. I'm really grateful that you and I scheduled this like 2 months ago. but because scheduling and things happen and we have to reschedule, and I appreciate you being so fucking cool and persistent in making this happen.
No worries. I'm glad everything worked out.
What does it mean to be a fucking cool woman?
Ooh, this is a good question. I would say for me, being a fucking cool woman is that you love yourself. You do the work that you need to do to get rid of any internalized patriarchy, right? Internalized self-hate, any internalized things, because we all grow up in the same countries that we do, your fellow country people, wherever they are, right? So we grow up with the same kind of education, same schooling, same socialization. We're exposed to a lot of the same negative things, right? And so, like, we have to do the work to deprogram ourselves from a lot of the negative things we get about what size is a good size body, what a fit body looks like, what good hair looks like, what's considered young and youthful, and why that's more or less important than being old. So we have to deprogram all of these like ageist, sexist, racist things that we're thrown at. And so I think it starts with doing the work ourselves because we can't be a fucking cool woman if we don't believe that ourselves. And so it always starts, I would say, with that, doing the work so that we are whole, intact, and healthy. And so that's part one. And then part two, it's like the kinds of things that I find interesting and appealing and attractive and fucking cool women are people who take a stand on things that they believe in so that they're not kind of like sitting back and watching growing fascism and authoritarianism and saying, "Ew, sheesh, this is bad." But people who are actually doing something to create the kind of world that they want in which fucking cool women can thrive and survive and aren't dying from maternal health mortalities and aren't having rights stripped from us when it comes to our own reproductive freedom and reproductive health care, right? And so it's all of these kinds of things and not being banned from participating in sports because we're trans or whatever it may be. Because for me, women is anyone who wants to say that they themselves identify as a woman. So all femme identified bodies are women. And so for me, a fucking cool woman is someone who embraces those kinds of things. I am well aware that there are people who disagree with me and say, I don't think that's fucking cool. I think that's fucking cool. Well, yipty fucking do for you. That goes back to what we talked about earlier, that we can disagree, we can have different thoughts and stuff like that, and that's fine. I think the only hard boundary for me is when we start saying we don't want other people to be able to do something themselves, right? You don't want to have an abortion? That's actually fine. Don't. But then don't go tell other people what they can and cannot do with their bodies, right? You don't want to run track? Don't, right? But don't go telling, the kid in the high school in your neighborhood or whatever, that they can't run track because they don't look like or think like or behave like what you think should be a nice little girl, right? And what other kinds of fucked up ideas people have about that, right? So that's my thoughts about being a fucking cool woman.
Yeah, cheers to that. Yeah. Because if you think she's a fucking cool woman, then she is a fucking cool woman. And just because I may not want to be her friend doesn't mean she can't be a fucking cool woman. And I respect her and I encourage her and I empower her. I don't feel like you have to judge people and deny them anything because they're not your friend, because it comes in all shapes and sizes. And yeah, it's all about choice. It really is. And who am I to say what is fucking cool? That's why I'm asking other people, what does it mean? Because ultimately we're all saying the same thing, but just say it a little differently. Yeah.
I think that's true for a lot of us. Like, I think a lot of us are all saying the same. And then there are people who are, I mean, there are people who are racist. There are people who are anti-trans. There are people who are anti-women having rights. There are people who would love it if women couldn't vote anymore. There are people, anything that can make people who hate immigrant women, right? And so there are all kinds of people who don't agree with things that I might think or you might think. You and I might not agree on everything, right? And so there's this thing that I think and that's the question of the day, right? And that's part of this democracy making project of and what do we do with that, right? And so are we going to move forward to a future where we may not all agree on things, we may not all like each other, We don't even have to, right? Nina Simone, you don't have to live next to me. Just give me my equality, right? That these ideas of like, you don't have to love everybody or be friends with everybody, but like, how do we actually move forward in a way that is respectful for people? And
Yeah.
then what do we do with people who are not respectful and are trying to curb rights and are doing awful things, right? And it's like nuance will always come into this picture. I
Oh,
don't think we draw things really quickly and say this is just quick and easy, but I do think it's on us all to really kind of do the deep work to ask these kinds of questions because we don't all agree,
yeah.
right? And there are people who are dangerous in the thoughts that they have, and there are all of these kinds of things. And so it's like, what do we do with all of that? And so I think these are the kinds of questions that are people are wrestling with beyond on this podcast, beyond whatever. This like, what does it mean to be a fucking cool woman, right?
Yeah.
Sarah Palin has a different answer to that than Michelle Obama has a different answer from that than you, than me,
Right.
than Meghan
Yeah.
Markle, than anybody else, right? And so people have
Yeah.
different answers.
Yeah.
So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see
Yeah. It
how
will be. It will
we
be.
sort all
But
out.
like it's about feminist issues and interest. And I think I'm not going to I'm not going to not care about somebody who is anti-choice, but it's all about choice. It's all about choice with everything. Choice to be, choice for your choice is everything. Don't take away choices. You can't take away the choice. You know, it's that's free will, choice.
Exactly. And that's the beautiful thing about choice. People choose to do all kinds of things that I would never do. I
Right.
do things that people wouldn't do. So that's the thing about choice. It's like giving people the option to have that
Yeah.
ability
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
choose what they would for
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. And I'm going to give ourselves kudos for choosing really, we chose our lives and growing the way we wanted to and didn't feel the need to, do the whatever other choices that are more traditional in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. And
Uh,
it's that's another thing of living our true selves. It's
right.
that we
Uh-huh.
have these scripts that are handed these scripts as women. Like, if you want to be a fucking cool woman in my eyes, you have to do this, right? You have to get married. You have to have children. You have to do like, right? We can be presented with all these kinds of scripts, and it's like finding for ourselves what works. I've known
Yeah.
since I was a little kid I want to have children. I've known, and I've never been pregnant, thank God. Like, I've just never wanted to have children, right? And so it's nice that like my adult life, that's I don't have them. I love my
Yeah.
nephews, I love my friends' kids, but never been a thing for me, and I could choose that.
Yeah. I agree. And I think that goes to the next level. Next question is, so what do we have, what do we, what do we do to maintain our fucking coolness? And I think that's it because I don't know if I was about to say, what do you need to be a fucking cool woman? I don't think that's the question because you just are, it's like, I'm just gay. I'm just this. I just am. So the same thing.
Right.
So how do you maintain it? How do you continue and how do you, share your fucking coolness? How does,
I don't know
yeah,
this. I'd say prioritizing your mental health. I don't think we talk about that enough. I think people who treat people shitty aren't happy people. When you're happy, when you're thriving, when you're vibing, when life is good for you, and then you meet someone else and they're saying, life's good for me, you're like, yay, right? It's like when you're in a shitty mood, when things aren't going well, when it seems the world is against you, when it seems you've had your unfair share of bad things happen to you, when all of these things are going on, it can be harder to feel happy for someone else or want to push them forward. And for all of us, life is always up and down. And so we will have times where we feel that way. We will have times where we feel great. Like for everything, like life is always up and down. There are times where it feels like you can't get a break. And there are other times where you're like, oh, this is the luckiest fucking break. I'm so grateful for where I am right now. And so I would say just prioritizing your mental health so that in all those times, good and bad, ups and downs, lonely and filled with friends and all of those things, that we still keep ourselves intact and that we still keep growing towards a healthier version of ourselves. And I think that that's how we stay fucking cool women. That's how we resist becoming bitter or jealous or giving up on ourselves or resentful or any of these kinds of things. It's really prioritizing, really being clear and honest and open with ourselves about our own mental health needs. And I think we need to say that in the terms of not mental health as opposed to mental illness, right? And so when we talk about mental health, it's kind of like, oh, is this mental illness conversation? but we don't talk about yoga in an illness conversation. We don't talk about physical health in an illness conversation.
Right.
We see it much more as a thing that we should be doing to grow and take care of ourselves and
Yeah.
all of that. And I want to see us talk about mental health more in that same way. The same way we talk about going to a Pilates class or yoga. No one's going to say, "Oh, what's wrong? Why are we talking about yoga?" So if you say, I really need to focus on my mental health, people are like, "What's nothing's wrong." It's like we actually need to just prioritize that, you know?
Yeah, well, I agree. I don't really have much else to say except you're so fucking cool.
So are you. So are you. And I love it that you're doing this podcast. I love it that you've been doing this foundation for almost 20 years. I love it that you keep it going and that you're always looking for ways to lift up other fucking cool women to really kind of bring that to the center. So I love that.
Thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. In order to really succeed or to get what you want, you have to shrink yourself in a certain way, right? We say you have to be professional, as if there's only one way to be professional, or we say you have to be diplomatic, as if there's only one way to be diplomatic. And I think there's so much about just authenticity and showing up in a way that really works for us. I haven't worn a suit in ages. And I grew up in an era where you're always supposed to you're supposed to wear a skirt suit when you go to interviews, or a skirt suit if you're doing this, or if you're on television. I've not worn a suit for decades. And I've been on television, I've done interviews, I've gotten all kinds of things. And I've lived a bigger life than I thought that I would. And I'm grateful for that. And it's true what you say about just like living your true self. I don't know. For me, it's just worked in that I've not been very good at having a poker face. So I wouldn't be good at hiding if I was unhappy about doing something I didn't want to do. And so I've just like kind of leaned into this, be my full self. If people don't like me, I have to learn to accept that. That was something, especially those of us that came up in the early days of the internet, right? Funky Brown Chick was founded the same year that YouTube was. So we've been around for a while. And so this early days, right, of like exposing yourself online and with the beginning of what trolls were before there was content moderation and all of these kinds of things, like we had to be comfortable being ourselves and knowing that some people wouldn't like that and be okay with that, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's really very valuable. Good to hear. Good to hear. You have to just really learn it and then practice it. Practice what you learn. I know. Um, well, one thing that we're going to shift gears just a little bit. One thing that I really appreciate about the FCW Society and what that stand for is that we only talk about the fucking cool women that we like. We don't need to talk about what we don't like. We acknowledge that there are people out there that may not be doing their best selves, but you know what? That's their shit, not mine. And if
Yep.
we can align ourselves with people that are living their values and are speaking up and empowering each other, then those other people have little or more control, you know? And
Yeah.
yeah, so especially in
It
this day
always
and age.
baffles.
Go
Okay.
ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying, it always baffles me when someone will spend 30 minutes or an hour listening to a podcast they don't like or watching a YouTube channel they don't like, and then waste their precious finger strokes typing a comment to say what in particular I didn't like about it and to bash the host or bash the guest or whatever, things like that. It's like, find something better to do with your time. Like, we have a very, very limited time on this earth as we are. Whether you believe in reincarnation, whether you believe that we come back or what have you, but in this state that we are right now, we have an extremely limited time and it goes incredibly fast. And so I love what you said about, hey, we're only going to really focus on the women that we think are fucking cool women. Because if there's someone who disagrees or you don't like, instead of spending time bashing them and saying what's so horrible about them, what you don't like about them, whether those things are true or not, just matters that it's not your tea, right? It's not your cup of tea. So
Yeah.
you're focusing on things and the people and the places and ideas that are. And so I love
Any
that.
last messages you want to share?
You're okay exactly as you are. I think that's something we don't say about ourselves, especially at this time, whether it's our birthday, entering a new year or new decade or New Year's, whenever there are times of life where we're like, oh, this is where I really lose that weight I need to, or this is where I keep the house in a certain way, or I do this, or I achieve this goal. And it's like, you're all right. You're all right. And so I think that like we need to also like in this, growth and mental health, emotional health, and wellness, and all of these things that we want to move forward. Also, realizing that the fractured, broken, healing, whatever version of you is what got you to where you are right now. And so we're doing all right. We're doing the best we can, and that's all any of us can really do.
Agreed.
Women are so fucking cool.